Hi everyone, on today's Friday Quick Fix I'm going to talk to you about the brushes that I use the most in my watercolour painting and therefore a recommendation for what you should look for in your kit if you're looking to buy some new brushes. Now the Pro Art Masterstroke range is a range that is readily available in the UK. I know that some of you further afield struggle to find it, but quite often you end up with a happy ending telling me you have found them. So I am going to put links below to the places that I find they're really easy to get, but I really hope that this will be helpful even if you can't get this exact brand and it's more about the sizes of the brush and what they can do. These are all pointed round brushes. That is the type of brush I use by far the most in my watercolour painting. I have recently been introducing new brushes like a rigger brush and a mop brush to my painting recently, but really it's all about the pointed round for me. So what I'm going to do in this quick fix is just give you a little rundown of what the brushes can do and make a recommendation to sort of what the top brushes I think you should have in your kit are. So we're starting with the biggest. This is a size 8. So because I'm left-handed, it's always upside down. Size 8 brush. It's the largest in my set and it therefore has the most amount of bristles in the brush, meaning when you are coating the bristles in paint, it takes just a little bit longer to get everything nicely coated. This largest brush, whilst being really great and broad, it also has got a fine point when put in water, so it can also give you a fairly nice fine point. The thing I love to do with this brush is paint petals and leaves, because I can do those leaves and petals in just a single brush stroke, or maybe just 2 brush strokes will get me a really nice broad petal. So I absolutely love the size 8 brush. The other really useful thing about this brush is it's great for mixing colours in your palette, because you can pick up a lot of water, a lot of colour on the brush and dump it in your palette and mix it together nice and quickly. So this is an absolute must, the number 8 size brush. Then we go down the list and we've got the number 6 here. So a lot of this is going to be fairly self-explanatory, that we're going to find it just does a slightly smaller version of the things that's just gone before. However, what I do find is the point, the fine tip of the point is way better than the size 8. So you get a really nice slender point of the brush, as well as being able to do some brush strokes. You can see they're just a little bit slimmer, but it's still a really fantastic brush. And sometimes you just want to have a little bit more control even with one of these larger brushes. So that's something, when you do have a really large brush, some people will feel they lack control and they are a bit scared of sort of how much coverage they're going to get. So quite often when I'm feeling like that, or I'm doing a slightly more small scale detail piece, I'll go for a size 6 to do my washes and my larger work. Now, this brush is probably the hardest working brush in my whole kit. The size 4 is an absolutely amazing brush because it's still on the large side, so we can still get a really nice broad line. And something to notice is that the length of the bristles with these 3, they are, you can see that the size 4's length of bristles are slightly shorter than the other 2, but it's still pretty much up there, whereas the moment we go down to the size 2, it really drops off. So this is still a really good brush for doing low angled strokes with the brush when you're just wanting to use the full length of the bristles. A fine point. Very nice fine point, and yeah, you can just see the control there is way better than the size 6. And then what's great about it is we still get a fairly good thin to thick double petal stroke. So you can see that really, if you were going to take out one of those brushes, probably size 6 would be the one you'd leave, because the size 8's got all the nice large amount of bristles for big coverage, and then size 4 can pretty much do everything size 6 can do, just with a little bit more control. And then the size 2 is a brush I'm really, really fond of, and it's one that I often forget I have. But it's just fantastic for when you're actually looking at doing maybe slightly more detailed work, but you just find if you're using a really tiny brush, it takes so long. If you suddenly are actually painting maybe a few petals or a leaf or two, you get a really fantastic sort of middle way brush, I suppose, with the size 2. So let's just get a nice fine line there. It's still a pretty helpful brush even on the larger stage. So yeah, I end up using my size 4 and my size 2 a lot for my flower painting, and if I'm putting in maybe washes or big loose paintings, the size 8 brush will then be in there. So I would say 4 and 2 are vital, size 8 is a really, really useful one to have. So let's move on to the miniature brushes down here. And I often talk about 2/10, 3/10 brushes, and what that means is you have your 0 brush with a 0 right there, and then there are brushes that are even smaller, and you can see there we've got a 2 with a slash and a 0. Then we've got a 3, and then we've got a 4, and they go even smaller, but the higher the number 2, 3, 4, the smaller the size of the brush. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about those kinds of brushes. But we're just going to do a quick test just to show you it's never going to be quite the same as the large scale brushes, but the beauty of the pointed round is you still can get an amazing amount of versatility within a single brush. So we can get the fine line, but also when you're painting in miniature, see, that is not bad. That's a size 0 brush. The size 0 brush is one that quite often I don't end up using because I'm usually just already working with really, really miniature detail, and because the size 2 brush is a really good one that sort of does all this but only just a little bit bigger. So the size 0 is actually probably one that I don't use that much in my kit, so I'm going to take that one out there and I'm going to focus on these guys. So the 3/10 brush, I remember when I first discovered there were brushes in the sub-0 category, I was so excited, and 3/10 was the first one I bought, and I used it for everything. And I think you can get a bit keen on just trying to paint absolutely everything with one 3/10 brush, and then you realise that your painting has taken you absolutely years to finish because you're trying to do big petal strokes. But look at that. Let's see if I can. No, I've done that slightly on the side. I've cheated a bit there. Nah, there we go. It's not quite as broad as I was making it out to be there. So a double stroke petal. Not quite doing it. But that lovely fine line is just fantastic. So I do love the 3/10. 2/10. Oh, have I just done 3/10? Beg your pardon. So I'm going to get 2/10 and I'm just going to pop it in there. The hazards of live filming. The numbers are so small I can't even see them. So there we go. Here's 2/10. This will be in between the two. Another fantastic brush. So I think, you know, the differences, the subtleties and the difference between these really miniature brushes is very, very subtle. So I would probably recommend that you only needed maybe 2 brushes in the sub-0 range, and this 4/10 one is one that I seem to be using a lot at the moment in my YouTube videos. I've just really fallen in love with it again. And you just get these lovely fine lines, loads of control. You're not going to get much in terms of a broad stroke, but that's not what we need this brush for, so it's still pretty versatile. So my recommendation to you if you were looking to buy brushes but maybe don't have the room for millions of brushes, or you've got a fixed budget, I would recommend going for a size 8, a size 4, whoops, let's get these all lined up, and a size 2. And then I would personally go for a 3/10 and a 4/10, just so you've got the sort of sliding scale, because the 3/10 still does a really fantastic job. There's not a huge amount of difference between the 2 and 3, but yet there is a massive amount of difference between the 3 and the 4. So I really hope this has been helpful for you if you're picking out brushes. These are the brushes I use the most. I absolutely love them and I really enjoy painting with them, so I hope you will too.